This is an excerpt from an article from mysteriousuniverse.org entitled Scary Real Curses Surrounding the Scariest Movies by Brent Swanser. Another of the most notorious supposed real-life curses behind a movie was linked to yet another story involving demons and possession, which came out before either The Exorcist or The Omen, and was one of the movies that pioneered the popularity of such stories. 1968 saw the release of Rosemary's Baby, a film directed by Roman Polanski and produced by William Castle, which follows the story of a young pregnant wife whose husband makes a pact with devil worshippers to trade his unborn child to Satan for success in his career. Despite the fact that the film's producer, Castle, was up until that point most well known for B-movie schlock and gimmicks such as vibrating seats, with the help of the up-and-coming young Polanski at the helm, the movie was released to massive critical success, catapulting Castle into respectability, and it remains highly regarded as a horror classic, winning awards, being selected for preservation in the National Film Registry, becoming a fixture on countless scariest movies lists, and spawning numerous imitators. Unlike the other films mentioned here so far, the production of Rosemary Rosemary's Baby itself went off mostly without a hitch, although Castle became more and more convinced that there was something ominous, a certain sense of dread, hanging over the set. It was not until after the film's release that things became truly bizarre and unnerving, and strange events would start to plague those involved with the film. It started with a deluge of bitter, hate-fueled letters from viewers received by Castle which denounced the movie and ranged from accusing him of Satanism and witchcraft to earnest wishes laced with vitriol that he would die and rot in hell. At one point, the increasingly disturbed Castle would receive around 50 of these venomous, hateful letters a day, to the point that he actually began to start fearing for his life, and he started to really believe that the movie was emanating some sort of dark force, once proclaiming that he had, quote, unleashed evil upon the world, end quote. In the midst of this flood of hate mail, Castle came down with a painful bout of kidney stones and was hospitalized. Of course, he blamed his deteriorating condition on the film, and over the next few months he would be in and out of the emergency room in excruciating pain, to the point that he famously exclaimed during one such visit, "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the knife." As Castle became more and more paranoid and fearful of the film he had created, he found much to his horror that Krzysztof Komeda, the 38-year-old Polish composer who had created the haunting score for Rosemary's Baby, had been hospitalized in the very same hospital with a cerebral hemorrhage, which would ultimately kill him with a blood clot to the brain. Eerily, the character of Rosemary's friend in the movie, Hutch, dies of the very same thing. This death and the uncanny coincidence associated with it, as well as the increasingly threatening letters he was receiving and his chronic urinary tract issues, caused Castle at one point to lament, quote, the story of Rosemary's Baby was happening in life. Witches, all of them, were casting their spell, and I was becoming one of the principal players, end quote. The death of Komeda was by no means the end of the supposed curse, and in fact it would only get more frightening as it set its sights on the director himself, Roman Polanski. Rosemary's Baby had been Polanski's big break, and its resounding success had shot his popularity into the stratosphere. In addition to practically overnight becoming one of the most talked about directors in show business, he was also expecting his first child with his beautiful wife, budding actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant. It seemed that things could not have possibly been any better for Polanski, but this elation and happiness were not to last. On August 9th, 1969, Tate and some friends, hairdresser Jay Sebring, Katie Folger, and screenwriter Wojciech Frykowski, were having a party at her home in Benedict Canyon while Polanski was away on business. At around midnight, a drugged-up group of women led by a Tex Watson arrived at the home after having been ordered to kill by their leader, the notorious Charles Manson. The group cut the phone lines and then proceeded to make a grand entrance before the terrified partygoers, with Watson reportedly dramatically announcing, quote, I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business, end quote, before they went to work stabbing Tate and her friends to death. As Tate lay dying on the floor in a pool of blood, she is said to have begged for the group to spare the life of her unborn child, after which she was killed by one of the cultists, Susan Atkins, who drank Tate's blood and went on to use it to write "pig" on the walls of the home. It was a gruesome, sickening crime that would shock the nation, cement Manson as a bona fide psychopath, and which would forever haunt Polanski. The murders also fueled speculation that the curse of Rosemary's Baby had led the killers to the house, and even the more far-out conspiracy theory that Polanski had made an actual deal with the devil in order to gain his newfound fame, just like the character in his movie. A more tenuous yet nevertheless intriguing connection to this supposed curse is the death of Beatle John Lennon, who happened to be friends with Polanski. Already creepy is the fact that Charles Manson would claim that he had gotten the idea for his murder spree from messages he claimed were hidden in the Beatles' White album. Even creepier is the fact that John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived in the Dakota Building, which had been chosen as the location for the building in Rosemary's Baby due to its distinctive Gothic appearance. It was outside of this building where in 1980 Mark David Chapman would shoot Lennon dead, right there where Rosemary's Baby had been filmed. Chapman is said to have prepared for the deadly attack by listening to Beatles records over and over again while naked and praying for demons to enter his body to give him the power to kill. Although Lennon's death does not seem to be very strongly linked to Rosemary's Baby, it is still considered by many conspiracy theorists to fall under the umbrella of the film's alleged curse. Castle would spend the rest of his days regretting producing the movie which had made him famous, and was purportedly terrified of the film all the way up to his death in 1977. Even when Rosemary's Baby was winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress and being nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, the spooked Castle refused to attend or to bask in the limelight, more or less disowning the troubled film. When asked about why he had forsaken the movie and the accolades it had garnered him, Castle would say, "All my life I had yearned for the applause, approval, and recognition of my peers, and when the awards were being passed out, I no longer cared. I was at home, very frightened of Rosemary's Baby."